The situation around XRP has once again started heating up in the market, and today's discussion is focused on what many are calling a major turning point moment. There are new claims and strong discussions circulating in the crypto community about something being referred to as the XRP Clarity Act bombshell. While nothing is officially confirmed at the highest level yet, the reactions from traders, analysts, and retail investors are showing that confidence and curiosity around XRP are growing very fast. In today's update, we are going to break down everything step by step in a clear and simple way, so you can understand what is actually being discussed and why it matters for the future of XRP. Before we go deeper, let's set the context. XRP has always been one of the most talked about digital assets in the crypto market because of its connection to cross-border payments, financial institutions, and regulatory debates. Over the past few years, XRP has gone through legal pressure, market uncertainty, and strong community support at the same time. Now, with new conversations around possible regulatory clarity frameworks being discussed in the broader financial space, many people believe that XRP could be entering a completely new phase. This is why today's news is getting so much attention across social media and trading communities. Now here's the important part, and this is the 30-second hook you need to understand. Imagine a situation where regulatory clarity finally gives XRP a clear legal position in the financial system. Imagine big institutions that were once waiting on the sidelines finally stepping in without fear, and imagine liquidity moving freely across borders using XRP as a bridge asset. If even part of this becomes reality, it could completely change how the market views XRP forever. That is why today's development, even as rumors and discussions, is creating such a strong emotional and financial reaction across the crypto space. Welcome back to XRP On Moon, where we break down the latest XRP news in a simple and easy to understand way. In this channel, we focus on market updates, key developments, and important discussions that could shape the future of XRP. So make sure you stay with us until the end, because each part of this breakdown will help you understand the full picture behind today's headline. What is being discussed as the Clarity Act bombshell is not a single confirmed announcement, but rather a combination of policy conversations, legal interpretations, and market expectations building around regulatory clarity for digital assets like XRP. Some analysts are suggesting that if clearer guidelines are introduced in the United States or other major financial regions, XRP could benefit directly due to its established use case in payment settlements and liquidity transfer systems. However, it is also important to understand that the situation is still developing, and the market is reacting based on anticipation rather than confirmed execution. To understand why the current XRP discussion is getting so much attention, we need to go back and look at the bigger picture of how regulation and crypto have been interacting over time. The crypto market has always been sensitive to legal clarity, especially in the United States, because major financial decisions and institutional participation often depend on how regulators define digital assets. XRP has been at the center of this conversation for years, mainly due to its legal battle history and its unique role in cross-border payments. Over time, the market has seen different phases of uncertainty around XRP. At one point, fear and hesitation dominated trading activity because investors were unsure how regulators would classify XRP. This uncertainty created pressure on price action, liquidity flow, and exchange listings in certain regions. However, despite all of this, XRP continued to maintain strong community support and ongoing usage discussions in the financial sector. This is an important detail because it shows that XRP did not lose relevance even during uncertain periods. Now, the reason the Clarity Act discussion is being called a bombshell by some people is because of the expectation that regulatory frameworks may finally become more structured and clear for digital assets. If that happens, it could remove a major barrier that has been holding back institutional confidence. In simple terms, clarity means less confusion, and less confusion usually means more participation from big financial players who prefer stability and legal certainty before entering any market. Another important factor to understand is how market psychology works in crypto. Even before official announcements are made, rumors, policy discussions, and legal interpretations can strongly influence price movement and sentiment. Traders start positioning themselves early based on expectations, not just facts. This is why even unconfirmed discussions around regulatory clarity can create strong market reactions, especially for assets like XRP that are already widely followed. At the same time, it is important to stay balanced and realistic. While the idea of regulatory clarity sounds positive, it does not automatically guarantee immediate price growth or institutional adoption. Markets usually move in phases, and even after clarity is introduced, it takes time for institutions to adjust systems, compliance frameworks, and infrastructure. So what we are seeing right now is more of a preparation phase in the market rather than an instant transformation. Another angle that is being discussed in the community is how XRP's technology fits into the broader financial system. XRP was designed to support fast settlement and liquidity movement across borders. This use case becomes more relevant when financial systems are trying to reduce cost and improve transaction speed. So when people talk about regulatory clarity, they are also indirectly talking about whether XRP can finally be integrated more openly into these systems without legal friction. Now, moving deeper into the current situation, the most important thing to understand is how the market is reacting emotionally and strategically at the same time. Whenever there is even a hint of regulatory clarity around XRP, the response from traders is immediate. Some investors see it as a long-term confirmation signal, while others treat it as a short-term volatility opportunity. This mix of reactions creates strong price sensitivity, even when there is no official final decision announced. Right now, the sentiment around XRP is not driven only by fundamentals, but also by expectations. In crypto markets, expectations can sometimes move prices even faster than actual events. This is because participants are constantly trying to position themselves ahead of potential developments. So when discussions around something like a Clarity Act start circulating, traders begin adjusting their strategies based on what they think might happen next, rather than what has already happened. A key point that analysts are focusing on is institutional behavior. Large financial institutions usually do not enter markets based on hype or speculation alone. They wait for legal and regulatory clarity before making any serious commitments. This is why XRP's regulatory environment has been such a major factor in its long-term price outlook. If clearer rules are introduced, even gradually, it could open the door for more structured participation from banks, payment providers, and financial service companies. At the same time, retail investors are reacting differently. Many retail traders are driven by momentum and news flow, so when headlines suggest something like clarity or approval, it creates a wave of excitement and fear of missing out. This emotional reaction often leads to increased trading volume and short-term volatility. However, it is important to understand that volatility does not always mean direction. It simply means uncertainty is high, and both buyers and sellers are active at the same time. Another layer to this situation is the role of global financial systems. XRP is often discussed in the context of cross-border payments and liquidity bridging. If regulatory clarity improves in major economies, it could allow more financial experiments and integrations involving digital assets like XRP. This is not something that happens overnight, but the possibility itself is enough to keep market attention strong and consistent. We are also seeing increased discussion among analysts about how XRP could behave if clarity becomes more defined over time. Some believe it could lead to stronger long-term adoption narratives, while others remain cautious and highlight that regulatory approval does not guarantee price growth. Both perspectives are important because they show that the market is still divided in its expectations. At this stage of the discussion, it is important to focus on what could actually happen next if the ongoing conversations around XRP regulatory clarity continue to develop. The market is currently sitting in a sensitive zone where both optimism and caution are present at the same time. This balance is what makes XRP-related news so impactful, because even small updates can influence sentiment in a strong way. One possible scenario that traders are considering is gradual clarity rather than an instant decision. In real financial systems, regulatory changes do not usually arrive as sudden approvals. Instead, they come step by step through discussions, guidelines, interpretations, and enforcement clarity. If XRP benefits from this type of structured clarity, it could slowly rebuild stronger confidence among institutions that have been waiting for legal certainty before increasing exposure. In a more bullish scenario being discussed by market participants, clearer rules could allow XRP to expand its role in cross-border settlement systems. This would mean more integration with financial platforms that focus on speed and low-cost transfers. If that happens, the demand narrative for XRP could strengthen over time, not just from speculation, but from actual utility expansion. However, this remains a forward-looking possibility and not an immediate outcome. On the cautious side, some analysts are pointing out that regulatory clarity does not automatically equal adoption. Even if laws become clearer, institutions still need time to adjust systems, conduct compliance checks, and build infrastructure. This process can take months or even years. So while the idea of a Clarity Act sounds powerful in market discussions, Its real-world impact would likely unfold gradually rather than instantly affecting price or usage. Another important factor is market behavior during uncertainty phases. When traders are unsure about final outcomes, the market often becomes highly reactive to news headlines. This creates sharp movements in both directions. Positive interpretations can lead to sudden price spikes, while doubts or delays can quickly reverse momentum. This type of environment is common in crypto markets, especially for assets that are closely linked to regulatory developments like XRP. It is also worth noting that global financial interest in blockchain-based settlement systems is growing. Even without specific regulatory decisions, the conversation around faster and cheaper global payments is becoming more serious in traditional finance. XRP often appears in these discussions because of its design purpose. This keeps it relevant even during periods when direct regulatory news is limited. To bring everything together, the current XRP situation is best understood as a developing phase rather than a finished outcome. The so-called Clarity Act bombshell being discussed across the crypto space is not a confirmed final event, but it represents something much more important in market behavior, which is the growing expectation of regulatory direction. And in crypto markets, expectations often move ahead of reality, shaping sentiment long before official confirmations arrive. What we are seeing right now is a combination of three major forces acting at the same time. First is regulatory anticipation, where traders are trying to predict how governments and financial authorities will define digital assets like XRP in the future. Second is institutional positioning, where large players stay cautious but continuously monitor legal progress before making any major entry decisions. And third is retail momentum, where news headlines and social media discussions create fast emotional reactions in the market. For XRP holders and watchers, the most important thing is to focus on clarity signals rather than hype signals. Clarity signals include real regulatory frameworks, official policy updates, and structured guidelines that reduce uncertainty in how XRP can be used in financial systems. Hype signals, on the other hand, are based on speculation, rumors, and interpretations that may or may not align with actual policy decisions. If clearer regulations do arrive over time, the long-term impact could be significant, but it will not happen instantly. Financial systems move slowly when integrating new technologies, especially in areas like cross-border payments, liquidity management, and institutional settlement infrastructure. This means any real-world adoption story for XRP would likely unfold gradually, step by step, rather than in a single explosive move. At the same time, the market will continue reacting to every new development, whether it is confirmed or speculative. This is why volatility around XRP tends to increase during periods of regulatory discussion. Traders must understand that volatility is not a guarantee of direction. It is simply a sign of uncertainty and active participation from both buyers and sellers. XRP remains a closely watched digital asset because it sits at the intersection of technology and traditional finance. Its future potential is tied not just to price movements, but to how global financial systems evolve in terms of speed, cost efficiency, and regulatory acceptance of blockchain-based settlement solutions. If this content is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be taken as financial advice. Cryptocurrency markets are highly risky and volatile, and you should always do your own research before making any investment decisions. If you found value in this breakdown, make sure to like this video and subscribe to XRP On Moon for more simple and clear updates on XRP and the crypto market.